Hello, I'm back, and after that brief interlude, where I had to go clear my tummy because I think the coffee and hot chocolate I had earlier kind of set my bowels a bit. Gonna finish off my reaction video, so I'm gonna talk about the finale and then kind of my conclusion. So the finale, which I've just watched a few hours ago now, um, where our players all are at, the Protostar has appeared at the heart of Federation space and is surrounded by a fleet. Admiral Jimmy knows the truth, but because of the body swap shenanigans earlier, people relieved her on the medical grounds, and so she's basically in the brig. Which I mean, okay, so I get it makes sense, and it's not a plot hole. But just because someone had even if you believe someone had a moment of insanity, that doesn't mean you wouldn't hear them out. Like, surely she still has the right to call the bridge, even in the brig. Like, if she tells the security officer, "Hey, I need to call the bridge," that security officer doesn't really have the right to be like, "Well, no, you can't." Surely she should be like, "Hey," tell her superior officer that, "Hey, Admiral Janeway wants to like speak to you. What should I like let her?" And then as a commanding officer, be like, "Well, sure, I hear what she says," and then make a judgment based on that. Like, insanity, like, hey, even in 2022, you constantly assess for a person's capacity, and you do not assume insanity. And even if you have proven insanity, you then even if you assess insanity, you then constantly reassess in case sanity returns. So that's post show like Star Trek Medical. Fortunately for Janeway, the security officer is one of the refugees who she saved during Voyager's initial voyage. And it's an episode that I actually remember watching, and she basically was like, "Hey, I trust you," so she lets her go rather than hitting the bridge, but whatever. Um, Meanwhile, the Prodigy crew spending time trying to take back control of the ship after the construct has locked them out. Which, if they could do it, if they could do that, why didn't they do that earlier? I guess before they were always heading back into Federation space, except there was a part when they were like, "We'll go to Federation space, but we'll leave the ship behind." Not sure why the construct didn't take over then. There's a whole bunch of things that don't make sense in this episode. The fake ensign and the diviner and Deadlock, they transport over to the Protostar after the fleet take down the shields. And despite an attempt from the crew to like secure the bridge, all the crew except Gwen get incapacitated. Gwen fights the ensign one-on-one, but ultimately loses. The diviner has a change of heart. I guess a mixture of the kindness that Janeway showed him and because of his daughter, and ends up being killed. And the ensign basically successfully opens up a hail channel, and it affects all the ships, and they all start fighting each other. And no one really explodes. Well, one Klingon ship later on explodes on screen. No one else explodes on screen, but then when we return after like a break, we see a bunch of ships like floating, and it's like derelicts. And so I have to assume all those crews are killed, or at least a whole bunch of them are killed. Like, it's not shown explicitly on screen, but it's unlikely that there were no casualties of that. So Starfleet have now, understand what's going on, but they help us solve the situation. Gwyn attempts to mitigate the situation by hailing out to the Federation's allies. The universe has translated it down, so only she can talk to people, and gives a passionate speech about, "Hey, if you don't come help Federation now, everything Federation stands for is going to be lost." And a small Klingon fleet answers, "Here's the plea," and then does respond. And I have a mixed reaction to this. On the one hand, it's not the first time. No, wait, there's several things here. Okay, it's not completely out of the ordinary. For the Klingons to help the Federation out of a mess. And they are allies, and they have fought together, and they're currently in an allyship. But normally, but they are also like the Federation's main rival, and every time they've helped before, it's usually been because it's been mutually beneficial. Like it's never necessarily been completely selfless. Like when they helped against um the AI in Star Trek Discovery, I forget what it's called now. It was because if they didn't defeat that AI, it was gonna control. If they didn't defeat control, it was gonna attack everyone. The Dominion War, it was a mutual enemy situation. And they're in a situation where now they wouldn't attack the Federation. But if someone held being like, hey, if you don't help the Federation now, the Federation is gonna be destroyed, and only the Federation's at risk here, and it's about protecting the Federation's values, which not everyone, is on board with. I'm not sure the Klingons will be that quick to help. It benefits them more to have a weakened Federation, like politically. It just seems a bit. It's not unrealistic, but it's like it's a very optimistic view of the political situation, which I don't think is really grounded in the reality that Star Trek is set in, And also, the Klingons don't really do much to help, actually. But I guess they kind of slow down the stuff. It doesn't really do much to help. And then the Protostar crew realize that if they configure the engines, they can get the ship to basically jump away and explode in a measured fashion, and it would destroy the ship. I'm just looking over the plot stuff to see, because I need to just remind myself exactly what this is. So it's not clear their kind of logic, but ultimately what happens is because the ship gets destroyed, it destroys the construct, and that reverses all the it doesn't reverse the damage, but the ships all stop firing at each other. I'm not sure if they knew that would happen. If anyone knew that would happen, it seems to suggest that they did. But if that was always the situation, and why didn't they destroy the ship earlier? Like, why did no one even try that? Like, through any means, is it implied that if the ship gets destroyed in any kind of fashion, that the explosion will destroy like everyone around? Because that's like a very dangerous engine to put in any ship. Like that's like it's irresponsible. It doesn't really make much. I have issues with the finale. A lot of things still make sense. I don't like aren't explained adequately enough that makes me kind of like, eh. But I guess it fits in the kind of realms of Star Trek. It's not a plot hole. It's just I don't think there's enough explanation. Like, if it was that easy to destroy the construct, you just destroy the ship. I feel like someone should have read that earlier. But yeah, we have the normal situation of the autopilot's not working, someone has to stay behind with a ship. Hologram Janeway volunteers, and honestly, it makes the most sense because she's a hologram. No one wants to leave her behind. No, so she says she'll copy herself onto an isolated chip, but then realizes that she can't because she's too. She's just her program's too big, but she pretends that it works and sends them on her way with a recording instead. And the Protostar jumps and explodes, and destroys the construct, and everyone goes back to everyone's ships gets restored. Which again, I assumed that if it was that devastating a weapon, that if it infected anyone, it would then exist in all those ships, but apparently that's not the case. Then we kind of have like an epilogue to the series, which is a month later. They're kind of investigating what's happened and stuff. The crew of Protostar make it back to the Federation in their kind of lifeboat. They also kind of reveal that when the hologram Janeway made the ship explode, she exploded in a certain way, which recreated a wormhole to the exact place that Chakotay is trapped in. So it means it can go and save Chakotay, which I assume is going to happen in season 2. And then there's a tribunal to investigate. Well, to consider the criminal charges against the Protostar crew for stealing the ship. Now, this is what I was alluding to in my last part of this reaction. It makes sense for the kids to assume they get in trouble for stealing the ship, but why is Starfleet even consider the charges instead of like just dismissing them immediately? Like, they didn't steal the ship. You had no chance of finding the ship until they found the ship, and they used the ship that was left behind and abandoned in order. Well, I guess you were looking for the ship, but you weren't gonna find it. Left the ship that was abandoned to escape from a slavery situation, and the entire time, like Jimmy says, they stole it to give it back to us, and the only reason they didn't give it back to us sooner was because they knew about the danger which they saved us from. Any reasonable person would be like, yeah, that's like more than fair enough. Why are we even considering charges at all? And like, it's not a case of like a formality. Someone actually argues that they should be prosecuted. Or that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So reasonable. Come on, Starfleet. I mean, having the tribunal should have been focused on should they join Starfleet, because there's reasonable reasons why they shouldn't join Starfleet Academy. You know, augment species they haven't even had first contact with in the future, from the past, etc., etc. That should be like the big consideration. Honestly, the kids more than acted like unreasonably in a logical fashion, and everything they did was within the realms of the fact that they're children. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous that it was even a consideration. And when kids are like, oh, the academy's not a space camp for children, it's a serious place. They didn't commit any crimes. Oh, come on. Ugh. Nonsense. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Gwyn, eventually they dropped the charges, which I dropped earlier, and they let them all staff there. Actually, no. They won't fast track him into Starfleet, which I don't know why anyone's even arguing for fast tracking him into Starfleet. I think just let him join Starfleet was enough. And also, like, so it should like been allowed to apply normally, and it's not. So instead, it's confusing. Okay, well, firstly, Gwen doesn't join at all. She leaves. It's not clear what if they just refused her. I think it's implied that she asked not to be considered, but we don't see that happen. But then she gets told she's not included. Like, it was confusing in terms of what we do and not see. But she said she does want to continue her father's mission to save Solom, just in a less destructive way, and so she goes off and does that. And it's that's fine. That's what her journey is. Everyone else isn't allowed to join Starfleet Academy. Isn't allowed to be fast tracked Starfleet Academy. But it's not clear why they can't just like apply the normal way. Because instead what happens is they're allowed to join as warrant officers in training, which is confusing. Firstly, well, it's not clear because the warrant officer rank doesn't exist in Star Trek until now. It doesn't exist in Starfleet. In real life, the warrant officer rank is a thing. The warrant officer rank isn't a naval rank, which is what all Starfleet ranks are based off of. The warrant officer is a rank in both the Air Force and the Army. I don't think it might be in the Marines, I'm not sure. And it's essentially the equivalent of, I think, a chief petty officer, I think petty officer is a sergeant, so a chief petty officer is a warrant rank, which is basically what Chief O'Brien is. It's a pretty senior rank to have. Like, it's as close as you could be to being a commissioned officer without being a commissioned officer. And if you reach the rank of a warrant officer, you're usually like as experienced as you can possibly be, to the point where, you know, even though technically junior officers are higher in rank, they would tend to respect the experience of an officer because they're like the veterans, the older people have just not got a commissioned rank. They're enlisted non-commissioned. Well, they're not enlisted, they're non-commissioned officers. So instead of letting these kids join Starfleet Academy as cadets, they're basically given the acting rank of what very, very senior personnel would have, like Chief O'Brien. and yeah, but their children are 16 to 17. It doesn't. Again, the role officer rank doesn't exist in Star Trek until now, so it could be like just it could mean something completely different, and it doesn't exist in naval structure, so it's a bit unclear what it's meant to represent. Maybe it means something else, but normally, in the absence of a Star Trek explanation, you're meant to assume it follows real life practice. So that doesn't really make much sense, but Janeway shows them a new Proto-Star class ship, which isn't a prototype, but tells them that they're not going to be on that ship. They're going to be doing something else, and then the episode abruptly ends. Actually, all of the episodes abruptly end. Kind of. So you know how when an episode ends, typically in something, you have like the last, dialogue, the stinger, the thing that we end the episode on, and then there's like a beat where the music kind of like fades, and then we go to the credits, or it fades into the credits. For some reason, when they compile these episodes, we get a stinger, we get the next half a beat of the musical fade, and then it kind of abruptly cuts with the end credit sequence. Almost as if like someone has like ended it before it was meant to end. And so Jerry literally says her last line, and then there's like the episode abruptly ends. And it's very off-putting. All in all, I think I enjoyed this. It was very good. For a show targeted at young audience, it was fairly mature. Dealt with like the plot lines in mostly not frustrating ways. Nothing was cringy. Animation was good. Characters were engaging. Again, for young children, they're decently engaging and not. I think the most frustrating things were again the communication kills plot line, which it's a really frustrating trope, and then the things at the end which didn't really make much sense. So that's my reaction to Prodigy. Look forward to the next season, seeing where they go from here. I like it. I like that it wasn't basically a Voyager repeat where the entire series was gonna. Because I was afraid this might be the case. Like it was going to be this compressed Voyager where their entire storyline was getting back from the Delta Quadrant to the Alpha Quadrant, but their ship went faster than the Voyager could. And so it was good. Quickly, I'm a bit annoyed that they can't be part of Starfleet, and I'm a bit confused on what the situation is. But another thing that bothered me are the kind of nitpicky things. The villain was compelling. Some things were compressed, but they're like because of the nature of the show, but it wasn't like compressed too much. Yeah, good show, good job. Right, I've been talking for too long, so enough of this. I'm gonna quickly catch up on my Duolingo and then play Destiny 2 some more because I have to cut off short. Thanks for tuning in, and see you shortly on my gaming channel.